there is so much information out there about COVID and vaccinations, and we hear, experts from all different elements of the topic expressing their opinion, and sometimes that conflicts, and we're never quite sure what to believe. So just, where do we go, and how do we, define what is the right information for us to understand and use to go forward?
The most important thing that any of us can do is, before we come across something online, on social media, for example, the first thing is to pause first. Pause. If you can, do a quick check. You can even do a Google search with whatever the topic is and include the words fact check, and you can see if this is something that experts agree is true or not. But pause, a quick check before we share. That's the first most important thing we can do, is just pausing before sharing. When it comes to doing that verification and knowing which information is credible, we're in an infodemic. That means we're having an avalanche of information, both true and false, and it becomes overwhelming. And it's a huge issue right now. There's just so much out there. And so I really want to encourage people to identify sites as reputable based on how they reflect the consensus. Of course, the main organizations like Health Canada, Public Health Agency of Canada, the CDC, and the WHO, these are organizations who have expertise in infectious disease, like COVID. If you don't want to go to any of those sites, then look for university-based websites or sites where it's not just reflecting one person's opinion, but it's looking at a consensus among many experts. So there are many fact-checking websites run by different journals and run by independent journalists. There's a media center where you can look at expert reviews of news, which I find very helpful and interesting. But I encourage folks not to look at just what one person says, but see what the consensus is. See what many people independently, what's the conclusion all of these scientists and clinicians have come to, and what do they all agree on? And that's always much, much more reliable than one person who's going off with a hot take. We're seeing so much of that, and it makes consensus all the more important to focus on.
With social media and in the newspapers, things change and emphasis changes as well. How do you see us getting through that, all those ideas and those thoughts, that we can actually use the best information to stay safe?
Science is a process. It is accumulating evidence to rule things out until you land upon the most likely explanation for something that you observed. It is a fluid process. So as you accumulate more evidence, the consensus can change. And that's actually a core part of science. We are always following the evidence. And if we have evidence to suggest something new, then that's what we follow. And that's really, really important. There's an open-mindedness in science that I think is a value that is really incredible. One of my favorite things about being a scientist. So for example, I know initially people were told not to wear masks, or people were told that washing hands was most important. And both of those things ended up changing. That was us following the evidence as we learned more. But what's important is that once there was evidence for this new thing of being true, many people independently verified it, many labs independently studied it, and then that allowed many experts around the world, I'm not talking like a few hundred, I'm talking hundreds of thousands, millions, independently leading to the same conclusion. And that is expert consensus, right? It undergoes a certain process of many people verifying, checking each other's work, looking for any holes. Check the links below for some great resources on how to fact check, what a credible website looks like, what credible information looks like, and importantly, how you can stop the spread of dis and misinformation. I've also included some of my favorite fact-checking sites and some fact checks for some of the most common COVID rumors and vaccine rumors going around right now. So give them a read as well, and share this video with anyone that you know who may be interested.
Dr. Yammine, thank you for all that great information. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that the folks that work for Graham will have learned a lot as well when they listen and hear what you've said. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and views with us. Stay safe.